Professor Myers, you are here at the invitation of my Democratic colleagues, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. In his opening statement, my good friend Senator Whitehouse said, I want to quote, reproductive justice is economic justice, close quote. Do you agree with that?
I might, as an economist, use the word rights, but yeah, I do agree with that.
Okay. That's not true for the baby, is it?
Well, first of all, I would refer to a fetus, not
Yeah,
a baby.
but that's, well, a fetus. I refer to it as a baby. That's not true for the baby, is it?
The evidence that I presented to you, Senator Kennedy, was evidence about measurable effects on the lives of women, families.
Right, I got that part, but that's not true for the baby, is it?
I'm sorry, I don't really understand.
Well, it's not true. Let me be clear.
Let me back up. As an economist, I measure effects using data. I'm not here to talk about ethics, assignment of personhood. That's not my
Well, but you
role.
said you agreed with the chairman's statement that reproductive justice is economic justice. There is no economic justice for the baby because the baby's dead, right? And then she'd pull the head out, the crushed skull out, right?
Mm-hmm. Senator Kennedy, your time has expired here.
Well, you gave
the
others plenty of time, Mr. Chairman.
Just letting you know, your time's expired.
Okay.
You have other senators waiting.
Well, I was waiting when you were letting others. I'm sorry you don't want to hear about what happens.
No, I don't think anybody
in
else
an
is
actual
going,
abortion, but I thought that was what we were here to talk about.
No one else has gone over. Some of the witnesses went a little bit long, but on both sides. So
I thought we were here about protecting mothers and killing babies.
I will start by saying that I made a promise to Miley that her name would not die with her. So that is part of why my activism is so important to me, is so people know who she is. I want to make two statements before I go into my final thing that I would like the committee to know. I think it was Senator Kennedy came to this hearing knowing that there was going to be a mother here who had to make the difficult decision to terminate a 20-week pregnancy, and he decided it was in his best interest to show a 21-week fetus. And his testimony was nothing but fear-mongering. From my experience, that was not my experience, what he was trying to persuade. Also, Mrs. Call, to answer your question to what he had asked, my procedure was an abortion. It is on my medical paperwork that I had an abortion, even though my daughter was deceased. It's not back and forth. An abortion is a medical procedure, whether that fetus is deceased or not. But I would like to ask the committee to remember my story and to remember that I'm one of thousands, if not millions, of people in this country that need or needed abortion access. And to remember that it's not black and white and one size does not fit all. We can't be putting politics into healthcare decisions, and also to remember these facts that abortion access is essential healthcare, no matter how you want to look at it. It's essential healthcare for so many. And exceptions don't work. I'm a living testimony to that.
Listen, from now on, John Kennedy's name is Mr. Ding Dong. Because of his infamous takedown of Kamala Harris, you know, the public thinks she's a bit of a ding dong, but now that's just your name, brother. You got to live with it forever. But, you know, Liz, I always talk about the reversal of Roe v. Wade was one of the biggest mistakes that the Republican apparatus ever made. Some things have to remain a carrot in front of you dangling. Because once you catch it, sometimes it's all over.
Can someone track down the women Kamala Harris says are bleeding out in part?
Present. I'm right here. I had a 19-day miscarriage in Idaho because of the abortion regulations. I was turned away not from one ER, but 2 ERs. Technically 3, because I walked into one and they said they wouldn't help me, and I had to walk out. On day 8, I went to the 3rd official ER that I got checked into, and I never did receive a DNC. They gave me 1 dose of pain medicine in 19 days. I continued to suffer exponentially for the next 11 days.
That was John McEn. You may have seen his videos on TikTok or Instagram, or maybe you've seen Walter Matherson spoof his videos, but he's always sitting, usually eating. In this video, it looks like he's eating a kid's meal of chicken nuggets. And then he always presents some very conservative talking point or a criticism of a liberal or progressive talking point in a succinct, snarky way, as if he's just wondering about things and shrugging. It's a perfect format for short-form political content, the kind of content where you don't want your audience to think too hard about what they just watched. You don't want to discuss or explain your point at all. You just want to plant seeds in their minds, maybe enrage them to the point of actually engaging with your content. You just want to make them feel like their half-baked beliefs are fully cooked and set. But McEn isn't just a social media influencer. He's well established on the right as a Project 2025 staffer, and he was the director of White House personnel in the Trump administration.
He was literally the man closest to the president, Johnny McEn, President Trump's personal assistant, his body man, abruptly forced out of his post and escorted off the White House grounds Monday. NBC News confirming McEn is under investigation by the Secret Service for serious financial crimes.
According to the Wall Street Journal, McEn was a habitual gambler, betting tens of thousands of dollars at a time, and was deemed a security risk as a result. Then Chief of Staff to the President, John Kelly, effectively had him tossed off the White House premises. We should note he was not ever charged with the crime. But in spite of it all, McEn is nothing if not loyal to Donald Trump. Former college football player and Fox News production assistant, was such a strong believer in Trump's message that back in 2015, he repeatedly cold emailed the Trump campaign begging for a job before the campaign eventually brought him on as a volunteer and then as a paid staffer. McEn was so committed to the cause that he worked out of this space in Trump Tower, 3 walls and an unfinished floor.
He, like vice presidential candidate J.D. Vance, is backed by tech billionaire Peter Thiel, and he founded a Trumpy right-wing dating app called Date Right Stuff. I hate that name, by the way. I think it's clunky, and I think that maybe he could have done better. So in the video you just saw, McEn insinuated that women in this country are not actually suffering as much from abortion bans as Democrats, specifically Kamala Harris, keep saying they are. He acts as though just because he doesn't know anyone who's experienced the negative side of these red state abortion bans, they're probably not real. At least he wants his audience to believe that they're not real. Unfortunately for him, his video went viral, so the women that he was asking about, they made themselves known, either by posting video responses of their own horrifying stories or detailing their stories in the comments. Here are just a few of the responses. One woman said, "My water suddenly broke and I went to the ER. They sent me home. Started cramping and went back to the ER. I miscarried at 17 weeks in the restroom at the ER because I wasn't deemed an emergency." So it doesn't sound like she was trying to kill her baby. Another woman said, "I was told when I had a possible ectopic pregnancy that I would have to wait until it made me septic to get the surgery to save my life." That is solid medical advice right there. Wait until you're nearly dead and then we'll do our best to reverse course. And one more, "Had a cyst burst inside my uterus while pregnant, causing a miscarriage. The on-call doc said it's best to wait a week to see if it comes out naturally. Now I can have 0 children because my uterus is gone." That was a preventable outcome, and again, this is coming from a woman who wanted to have children, and now she can't. Meanwhile, Republicans can't seem to stop criticizing women for being childless. And personally, I don't have his story because I will be 36 years old this October. I'm getting married a few weeks later in November, and I'm too scared to get pregnant in this big, stupid state. Because as healthy as I think I am, and as much as I've never wanted to abort a baby, you just have no idea what will happen once you get pregnant. You can only plan ahead so much, and every woman knows that, or they should know that. Before I wrap this video, I want to speak very quickly about McEn's word choice in the video. As I alluded to just now, I live in a red state, I live in Texas, so when he started off with, "Can someone track down the women?" my first thought went to what my state's Attorney General, Ken Paxton, is trying to do to women here in Texas. If you haven't put it together yet, he wants to track women. Specifically, he wants to violate our rights further to medical privacy by accessing the medical records of women who travel out of state to receive reproductive care. And here in Texas, traveling for hundreds of miles out of the regressive deep south just to get to a state that will actually take care of pregnant women is the only hope some women have of either having a healthy pregnancy or accessing life-saving abortive care. The doctors here in Texas can't help even if they wanted to. If they did and got caught, they can lose their license to practice medicine, and they could be facing a lifetime prison sentence. Paxton is suing the Biden administration for the right to sidestep rules protecting medical privacy where it pertains to Texas women seeking abortions in other states where it is legal. For the Republicans, they constantly insist that their stances on abortion and women's reproductive health are a matter of states' rights and not a matter of religious, dogmatic zealotry, and certainly not a means of controlling and suppressing half of the population. When the Republican state leaders start worrying about what's going on in other states, that seems to be going a little bit beyond states' rights. It seems incongruent with their primary argument, but Paxton claims that the federal rule protecting medical privacy is actually the federal government interfering in the state government's ability to prosecute criminal behavior, even though the so-called criminal behavior of protecting one's own life would be happening out of state, therefore out of the state's jurisdiction. Now, just to be clear, he wants permission to violate HIPAA on political grounds. He wants to claim that he's acting on behalf of criminality, but it's only a crime because he called it a crime. In response to the lawsuit, the Department of Health and Human Services released a statement saying, "The Biden-Harris administration remains committed to protecting reproductive health privacy and ensuring that no woman's medical records are used against her, her doctor, or her loved one simply because she got the lawful reproductive care she needed."
What do you think about woke culture? It's what everyone's talking about.
I think it's a bunch of crap. They're trying to change what our children think in the schools.
What would you like to see happen?
I'd like to get back like it was in the 60s.
This is a perfect example of a Republican telling on themselves for being racist while also not realizing that they're being racist.
Before all the civil rights stuff?
Before all the civil rights stuff.
So you would like to see things go back to before the civil rights movement?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. You know, where people have their freedom in this country.
Well, certain groups didn't have as much at the time, right?
Right. They didn't have as much at the time. But we still got to get back where this country stands up for this country.
Getting back to this country stands up for this country is code for, white people being on top. We're going to take our country back. You got it.
Hey, you look at the in this country, what do they want? They want people to come from Africa. The Mexicans want people, they stick up for their own kind. The Mexicans want more Mexicans here. It's that way.
There's all black colleges, there's all black churches, and nobody complains. But if whites have all white college, all white church, they're racist.
I think it comes from a history of the fact that they had to, because of segregation, they had to establish their own schools and churches. Yeah, African Americans.
Well, that's true. And everybody got along good back then.
Sorry, say that again. Just
segregation, everybody got along good.
What is with these crusty old white people thinking that social unrest is like this new age concept and definitely wasn't around in the 50s or definitely not the 1960s.
All the world today knows that we are here and we are standing before the forces of power in the state of Alabama saying we ain't gonna let nobody turn us around.
And then, of course, you have politicians like Marjorie Taylor Greene saying things like this.
I know a ton of white people that are as lazy and sorry and probably worse than black people I know.
It's a remarkably useful tool by right-wing politicians, sometimes, liberal politicians. It's white fear, tapping into that white fear, pushing that white fear button. We've all seen it. It gets everyone, woof. I mean, black people protesting, wanting equal rights, equal protections, all of that. Suddenly it's, oh my God, we're all going to lose our jobs because of a diversity hire. And I mean, it works. It works all the time. I mean, except when it doesn't. I mean, thanks to Gen Z, this past midterm election, we narrowly escaped, just getting trounced. So thank you, Gen Z. You rock. You're awesome. Now, what's worth noting is back in the 50s and 60s, when people say it was great then, that was also before there was a labor surplus, right? The definition of late stage capitalism is when we have a labor surplus. So things were good. Then if you were a middle-class family, a white middle-class family, you could raise a family, send them to college, and live a very comfortable life off just a middle-class income. That's gone away. We all know that. And my personal opinion is that conservatives, lack class consciousness. They don't have capitalism as their boogeyman. So it's like they're just feeling around in the dark, and they just misplace their anger and grab onto culture war nonsense, because there's no class consciousness and realization. There's no racial literacy. There's no this. So you can easily, take an economic problem in this country and, misdirect everyone to trans rights, diversity, and all of that. And that's what happens when you don't have any consciousness of, class, dialectical materialism, all that fun theory stuff.